Evening, everyone. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Monday night. It is 9:42 p.m. California time here, August 11th, 2025. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows looks like a little one-pointer there in California, also 1.2 up in Alaska. We do have a number of earthquakes here showing up in the red. That's the last hour of earthquake activity. A little swarm going on there just off the, it looks like right around the creeping section, but inland near the Pine Rock Fault zone. A couple smaller earthquakes there in the last hour, 2.3 and a 1.1. Nothing big going on down here across Southern California for now. In fact, the West Coast is fairly absent of 2.5 earthquakes. It looks like the latest one is going to be a 2.9 over in Nevada. So generally small microquake activity out there right now. Nothing really showing up here in Northern California aside from a three-pointer well off the coast this morning. I know there's been a number of little spikes there showing up on the Petrolia station recently. Those are very small microquakes, so there is earthquake happening. Earthquakes, really small ones, but not being reported up here. So I want to see what's going on here with the Cascadia tremor here this evening, or at least through the day. And wow, still got a fairly heightened number up here at 430 epicenters of tremor. That is today's count. That has been pretty steady here in the last week or so. As you can see here on the map, total tally about 1996. Been holding steady there with that number for a little while. Again, this is the last week. A little bit down here in Northern California, most of it clustered up underneath Washington and west of the Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens volcano. But interesting activity. Not looking at any major heightened tremor counts, but it has been consistent here. And of course, the tremor activity, what it's doing is it's a sign of the plates there, the North American plate and the subducting Juan de Fuca plate, slowly slipping past each other. That's why you'll sometimes hear them called slow slip events. But when that happens, guess what happens up in the locked area? It kind of adds further strain across that locked zone. One earthquake there on the Seattle fault from last night. I find that hard to believe that there's nothing going on out here for a Monday, right? They haven't even added any further quake activity out there across Mount Rainier. So let's go check that out. Here's the last 24 hours of earthquake activity. I would say, that there's still a lot of earthquake activity happening. We can go over here to the PNSN network too and take a look at theirs. It's going to be this seismograph station right here towards the northern end of the swarm. There's been a number of earthquakes showing up there. Those should be able to be located, but for whatever reason, they've pulled the plug on reporting these quakes. And I say that with facts to back it up. If you look here at the last UTC time, make sure we're running, bells are off. If you look at the last day, this includes this morning and this afternoon's time frame, there's quite a bit of earthquake activity here listed on this map. I don't think I need to show you guys exactly what the earthquake activity looks like on this one. It's well defined all over the place. If you compare this back to the swarm back in July here, maybe not quite as intense. This is July 10th. A little bit more than what we're seeing right now, but these were still earthquakes, and they were located, meaning that the seismologists there, scientists, were able to pinpoint where these earthquakes are occurring, determine their exact magnitude, depth, and location, and put out an earthquake there to the catalog. But these are events still happening, but everyone, is saying that the swarm's over, but that is not the case. Again, this was last July. Here's the current UTC time. Still got earthquake activity here in the last few hours. And the last day here, which includes the afternoon, this is just a UTC date. Still, earthquake activity. This other one looks like it's offline here. The one to the southwest, I don't know why they pulled the plug on that, but now we have no data for that one. So I don't know what's going on here, but the swarm has not died down. I don't think they've put out any new articles on this. Okay, here it actually looks like they did put something out. August 12th. Interesting here. It's not even August 12th, but UTC time. So this is from this person right here. we're going to go into this because I am just seeing this for the first time here. This wasn't up here earlier this morning. There have been small earthquakes near Mount Rainier since July, and they're still happening now and then. Since August 1st, we've so far processed and located 28 small earthquakes. So that's since August 1st, 28 small earthquakes, the biggest of magnitude 1. We're keeping a close eye on them to see if anything changes. Lately, we've also been seeing more surface events. These are not earthquakes, but things like falling rocks, ice breaking off, small landslides, and even strong wind and gusts. These can set off our automatic systems, but our experts can tell the difference and don't include them in the official earthquake list. These surface events are more common right now because of the recent warm rain and hot weather. We're seeing this at other volcanoes too, especially ones with glaciers. I'm thinking they've seen my video here this morning. Interesting article here. Definitely interesting, right? So, in their previous blog here, they mentioned the counts here. Total detection count for this preliminary catalog was at 10,834 with that swarm that began back on July 8th. So is what they're putting out, the information that 10,000 or maybe 80% of those are just events like rock slides and stuff like that? That doesn't make sense. That does not make sense. Let me go back over here and look here. I think that they're trying to downplay this a little bit because I do know what rock falls look like. These are earthquakes, not ice breaking off. Are you serious? I already showed you guys a comparison. I can understand things that may look like rockfall, but that is not rockfall. These are well-defined localized events, and you can compare them to last month's swarm. So you're telling me the swarm last month, that's all rockfall too? These look identical. I don't think rockfall creates those type of signals. I do know what they look like. But they're not going to show up like that on the seismograph station. So I find that just a little crazy for them to put out an article to dismiss their recorded seismograph stations there and state that they're just rockfall. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So what are those? There's no way that's rockfall. So, trained analysis review the data to make sure it's accurate. When the system finds a quake, this meets certain quality checks. When it meets a certain magnitude, and they get it. The quality checks means that they can determine and locate the exact magnitude, depth, and location of that quake. Once it's in line with their preliminary setting of that data, then it gets added to the public catalog quickly. But man, to hear them state that this is nothing more than just ice and what else did they say? They're calling them surface events. These are not earthquakes, but things like falling rocks, ice breaking off, small landslides, and even strong wind gusts. So you're telling me that happens all day long? No. Again, this is from July. If you look at this, these are identical to the quakes that we're seeing in the last day. This is July. There's some in the last few hours. Wow. Maybe not as numerous as what we've seen back in July, but I tell you what, these are still earthquakes, folks. I've been looking at these graphs for a very long time. I know how to read seismograph stations, and I don't see ice. Some of the ice quakes. Why'd they take off the other one here? Why did this station get removed? That just makes it even a little bit more suspicious here. So I'm not for sure what they're up to. But I'm going to be watching that closely here. No signs of magma movement. This is definitely fluid type events down below, but probably super hot fluid. But it hasn't let off. This has not let off. These are not surface events here. This is still earthquake activity. We watched the migration of the swarm there stir up from the south and then work its way north to where that's at right now. Show you guys here. This is just covers a little bit of it, but it started down south here, worked its way, oh man, almost a mile or so. There's a 3,000 foot, so yeah, almost. There's a mile scale right here. So started at south, telling me it worked its way almost a mile and a half to the north side of the volcano where we're seeing the ongoing swarm right now. It all started down here, kind of worked its way east, and then found its way to the north here. I don't know, folks. That's just, I'm really surprised they put out an article here. I'm thinking quite a few folks are questioning what's going on in the seismograph stations, but they can't say those are rocks and ice and warm. The warm weather is creating marks on the graph. That doesn't make any sense. I know what storms look like when they roll through. We see them at Yellowstone all this time, but even then they've adjusted Yellowstone's seismograph stations to where it barely picks up anything. So there's been some interesting stuff going on out here. I honestly don't know why they would downplay it. All right, so I'm going to back off here. They've said, let's see, this is the last week. I just want to show you guys something here, okay? We're going to go to these dates. The biggest one, well, they say the biggest one was on here. At least in this one, it's a 0.5 on the 5th of August. So let's go back here to the 5th of August. Pull that up, and that was at 12:20 on the northwestern side. I want to show you guys something closer to the swarm. So here's a 0.4, just a little bit smaller on August 7th. So let's go back. And that's going to be at 11:21 a.m. That's funny. That's when they had, see, that's the other thing. For a few days, they squashed the amplitudes here of the graphs to where you can't see anything showing up here. It got really suspicious there for a little bit. And then they added it back here like a day or two later. See, they readjusted it. You tell me, folks. I'm 99% positive these are still further earthquakes that are continuous out here. These are not just ice quakes and not rock falls. It seems like next they'll be blaming Bigfoot, moving around the rocks up there by the seismograph stations. All right, I'm going to back out here. Well, I got the rest to cover. It's a little frustrating to see that. Yellowstone National Park up here, a little swarm going on out around the Hebgen Lake Estates. This area has had some big earthquake activity in the past. Decent little swarm. See with the Yellowstone seismograph stations over here, they've even, let me go back over here real quick. I can't believe that. They've squashed their readings as well. Look at the amplitudes there. It's not supposed to look like that. You guys see that? If you go back, good thing, not Kevin, but I can't remember this person's name here that runs this site. But if you go back to last month, you'll see that the seismograph stations were working perfectly. You could see when earthquake struck, and there's really not any. But you could see events when they pop up down here. Now they look like that, squashed as can be. Even around the Hebgen Lake Estates is over here. I mean, where's that earthquake activity that's occurring? I can't even see any of it because the data is so squashed here. Maybe right there, but I don't know why the toning down has happened, but it's definitely interesting that it's happened here at Yellowstone as well. That's an observation, and I'm obviously not making that up. It's clear as day that they've been messing with the amplitudes here for some reason. Huh. All right, well, gotta move on. Let's see. The rest of the country, oil fields still getting hit. Really nothing major going on. If we check out the world view, still got a lot of aftershock activity there across the Turkey area from that 6.1. They're definitely going to see a bunch here for a little while. Pretty good deep activity movement there to the Indonesia area. The latest one, let's see, what is that quake? 4.6. Oops. That's a pretty deep earthquake. Let's see what it is over here. Oh, maybe there's a 5.2 in there as well. That's going to be that bigger ring. Kind of covered up here, it looks like. Oh, there it is. But, yeah, that's 167 miles deep here. Towards the Molucca Sea. This area very dynamic. You can see here on the map how everything's being torn and twisted and just stretched and pulled with the plate tectonics here. Very dynamic area. They're always seeing earthquake activity in this zone. And the deeper quakes normally add to the surface faults out here, producing bigger earthquakes. There's another deep earthquake this morning there, or this afternoon, along the plate boundary. 4.1, 142 miles deep. So a lot of deeper activity in this region. Keep an eye on that. May trigger some larger movement there soon. Older activity down here across New Zealand for now. Typical aftershock sequences there, continuing into the Kamchatka, Russia area. That is just, that's what happens when you have a big old mega quake up there. I don't see any more larger quakes in the 6 range. Really no migration going on. There was about a 500 kilometer long length here that ruptured and partially relieved the strain, and that's according to the USGS there. So still getting some aftershock activity there. A little bit more amplified up here across the Aleutian Trench, though. Got a number of earthquakes there above the 2.5 level, including a 4.2 this morning. The latest, though, a 2.6. It looks like back over here across the Alaska area. Let's see what else we have rocking and rolling out here. South America, typical movement down there. Same for the Middle America Trench. It looks like things have backed off a little bit there after some upper 5s happening here in the last couple days. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet there. Out in the middle of the Pacific, a couple smaller earthquakes there around Hawaii. So let's go see what's going on there across the Kilauea volcano. Building up towards episode number 31 here, which should happen in a number of days. Let's go ahead and take a look at the inflation chart here. Kind of going up here, just about halfway if you look here on the line. This is current. This is the eruption. Here's the pause in the eruption, the end of the eruption, then we're going back up here. So we do have a number of days before we reach that previous level. Before we see our next eruption. Not anytime super soon. Space weather activity out here. Had a number of C flares and M flares out there. It's still flaring out there on the eastern limb. Look at that. Very active areas out there now. Pretty much out of sight, out of mind. And those will probably continue to blast off some strong flares directed away from Earth. We do have this area right here sparking up a little bit of flaring. That's going to be sunspot number 4172 right here. A little bit of dynamic complexity here with that magnetic polarities. A lot of different colors here indicating that polarity within close proximity. Really not seeing much back here across the eastern limb. Let's go ahead and check out the far side watch real quick, see if there's anything of noteworthy value. This is put out today, although it's about a day old because this is 8/11. It's technically 8/12 and UTC time of 04:55. Said that backwards. So we're literally a day behind here. This is the Earth-facing side. Here's our active areas, about ready to drift off the west limb, but they're gone now. Wait, excuse me. This is... you see that? I did 2 things backwards. Oh, I'm tired. It's a heat out here in Northern California, I think. I should know this. This here's the far side. This is the Earth-facing side. Here's our active areas, right? Blasting off some M-flare activity. Here's the western limb. I know it seems a little confusing, but that's the western limb here. This is the far side. These sunspots are rotating here towards the eastern limb. And there's a couple different big regions out there. But I guess we'll have to wait for these to get into Earth-directed view before we get see if they're capable of producing any stronger flares. Right now, the flare threat should drop. Still elevated at 55% chance, 10% for X flare. That should drop here with these other sunspots off of the visible disk now. Coronal hole is facing us right there. I don't see any change there on the forecast, though, as far as any amplified auroras coming up. All right, real quick glance here at the hurricane status. I know a lot of people watching this, the Atlantic out there. Go check out the wind from that hurricane. We can see it pretty easily here on this forecasted map. Check it out there in the southeast there, around the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, it's still showing a diversion there. This is getting caught up in a couple high pressure ridges out here. And of course, they rotate the pressure there clockwise. That's going to steer this hurricane up northward and away from land. That's very good news with that hurricane. But of course, we got the rest of the hurricane season to watch out for. But looks like that one is, for now, being diverted. It's still a few days out. This could change. This image here, the 20th. So we got 8 to 9 days or so to ensure that that's exactly what's going to take place here. We can look at the numerical models on this storm. And see, that's not it. Well, I guess it's it got named, didn't it? Yes, it did. So this is actually Tropical Storm Erin, not Invest 97 anymore. I was wondering where that went to. Here's the spaghetti model showing the direction. Most weather models showing a diversion up north, although a couple here, and we got to watch it, are showing a more southward route over Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic area, and maybe even into the Gulf there around Florida. So not all of them are claiming northward movement, so we will have to check into that. One thing they are agreeing on, that this is going to be a pretty decent hurricane with some models showing up around Category 4. We'll just have to watch this and see how this plays out. All right, folks, seismograph stations out there pretty quiet. If you want to read that article that I showed you guys there, that the PNSN network brought out, and I know they brought out because a lot of people have been having questions about why we're still seeing earthquake activity on the map and no one's reporting it. They're clearly stating here, we've also seen more surface events. These are not earthquakes, but things like rocks falling, ice breaking off, small landslides, and even strong wind gusts. I know what wind gusts look like, and they do not look like the graphs I showed you guys. So this is the official wording here from these guys. Go check it out, pnsn.org/blog. You know what I am going to do here? I'm going to screen capture that just in case they make that disappear. I've seen people post up stuff, and then it just disappears the next morning, and people think I'm crazy because they're claiming it was never there, but obviously it is there. So I'm going to save that, and because the wording like that, claiming that these are not earthquakes, but they're identical to the earthquake swarm that we had back in July. It doesn't make sense here. But we'll continue to watch it and report back on any changes. Have a good one. We'll see you guys out here in the morning for the Tuesday morning update. Take care.